Our perception in the West, and particularly in the US, has been badly distorted by programs like MASH and things like that, and memories of the Korean War and such. And the 19th century, the first part of the 20th century, were difficult periods for Korea, most admittedly. There was an economic decline in the 19th century. There was Japanese colonization from 1910 until 1945. During the first part of the 20th century, there was World War II, there was the Korean War. Of course there were hardships, but that is an historical anomaly. During much of Korea's history, Korea was a very, very wealthy kingdom, particularly the southeast, Silla. We poor people in the West, in Europe and the Americas, don't reach those temperatures until, say, 16th, 17th centuries.
강의를 하고 있는 사람은 로버트 모우리. 그는 미국에서 유명 미술관 중 하나라 꼽히는 하버드 대학 미술관의 동양미술 전문가입니다. 그가 처음 동양미술에 관심을 가졌던 것은 1967년 대한민국의 평화봉사단위기에 참여하면서부터였는데요. 그렇게 한국의 미술에 빠져들면서 나아가 아시아 문화로 발을 넓히기 시작합니다. 그는 주로 한국과 중국의 문화재들을 전문으로 하고 있습니다. 그리고 미국인의 입장에서 한국의 도자기에 대한 이야기를 하며 미국인들은 한국의 편견이 깊게 남아있다며 그에 대한 설명을 하는데요. 어떤 내용일지 강의 시작합니다.
Now, for this crowd, probably everyone in the room knows exactly where Korea is. Korea is right here. It's a peninsula in Northeast Asia. The line that passes through there is the 38th parallel, which has had a real significance only since the end of World War II. But it's the 38th parallel that divides North Korea from South Korea. If you're wondering where it runs in the United States, on the East Coast, it's roughly Charlottesville, Virginia, in the Midwest. So that's the division today. Like I say, before 1945, it was one unified country, but that's...
그는 먼저 한국의 위치를 말하며 38선 그리고 한국의 역사에 대해 설명하기 시작했습니다. 고유의 문화들은 그 나라의 당시 상황과 흥망성쇠가 큰 관련이 있기 때문인데요.
Speaking of the Three Kingdoms period, this stretches basically from about the time of Christ in the West, coincidentally, down until the peninsula was unified politically and governmentally for the first time in 668. But before 668, it's broken into three basic kingdoms, and then there was a little confederacy, which you might call the fourth kingdom of the Three Kingdoms period. But the principal kingdoms are Pekche in the southwest, Silla in the southeast, and then Goguryeo, which was very large, extended into what today is Manchuria. Among Manchuria up here, this is the dividing line for Korea today. That is the border of North Korea with China. But in the Three Kingdoms period, the Goguryeo kingdom was very, very large one. What we will look at anticipating the development of the Saladons is basically going to come from down here in the southeast, the Silla kingdom, a few things from the Kaya kingdom as well.
당시 미국에서는 아기 예수가 태어났다 말하던 때 한국에서는 이미 국가들이 자리 잡았고 훌륭한 문화들도 많이 생겨났다 말했습니다. 그리고 미국인들이 한국을 어떻게 생각하는지 말하는데요.
Korea was a very, very wealthy kingdom, particularly the southeast, Silla. Our perception in the West, and particularly in the US, has been badly distorted by programs like MASH and things like that, and memories of the Korean War and such. And the 19th century, the first part of the 20th century, were difficult periods for Korea, most admittedly. There was an economic decline in the 19th century. There was Japanese colonization from 1910 until 1945. During the first part of the 20th century, there was World War II, there was the Korean War. Of course there were hardships, but that is an historical anomaly. During much of Korea's history,
오늘날의 한국은 전 세계에서 엄청난 인기를 누리고 있습니다. 특히 소프트 파워가 강세를 보이고 있는데요. 이러한 문화적인 강세는 우리 한국에게는 이미 오래전부터 훌륭한 문화들을 만들었기 때문에 어찌 보면 당연한 일이기도 합니다. 하지만 외국인의 입장에서는 오랫동안 너무나 가난했던 작은 나라가 단기간의 성장으로 훌쩍 커버린 것처럼 보였던 것인데요. 하지만 우리 한국은 현재의 문화도 훌륭하지만 아주 오래전부터 빛나는 문화를 가진 나라였습니다. 모우리는 그 증거를 말했는데요.
As you will see based on the works of art tonight, during most of Korea's history, it was a very wealthy nation that produced surpassing works of art, which they were able to do not only because of knowledge, sophisticated techniques, but also because of the wealth. And the wealth in the Three Kingdoms period, in say the 5th, 6th century, is symbolized by gold crowns like this, which were used by the rulers and other gold materials as well. Some kind of ritual belt, probably not for religious purposes, but probably a mark of royalty, a mark of status and such. And for use in certain palaces and such, there were even gold vessels. And we will see that some of these gold vessels dating to the 5th and 6th centuries would influence the shape and the appearance of ceramics of the period. But I show these as evidence of the wealth during that period.
박물관이나 역사책으로 보던 우리 문화재들을 이렇게 보니 새삼스럽게 놀라웠습니다. 저렇게 많은 금으로 오로지 장식 목적의 벨트를 만들거나 그릇을 금으로 만들어 사용했다니 놀라지 않을 수 없었는데요.
It is not glazed. Glazing doesn't really become widespread in Korea until the Goryeo dynasty with the Celadons. But the reason it's important to introduce this early ware is that it's not just a matter of adding glaze to a ceramic piece. To have a beautiful Celadon glaze, like we're going to see, it has to be a very high temperature fired ceramic ware. We can more or less judge a particular society or civilization's level of technological achievement by looking at the metalwork that they produce and also by looking at the ceramics. The reason for that, it's not a matter of looking at the beauty of the pieces, it's a matter of looking at the technology that went into it. It is difficult to produce kilns that can reach the high temperatures necessary to fire this kind of ceramic ware. But what that means, it has to be fired in a kiln that can reach and sustain temperatures in the range of 1100 to 1200 degrees centigrade. There was not a continuous history of firing ceramics at that temperature, but they were first able to do it then.
모우라는 한국의 전반적인 유물들을 소개하며 한국에 얼마나 뛰어난 기술력이 있었는지 그리고 그 어느 나라보다 훌륭하고 섬세한 도자기들을 만들어냈었는지 말했습니다.
The next people in the world to do it were the Japanese, learning from the Koreans and indirectly from the Chinese. Probably, and Mary Beth will correct me, but 5th century, some of those early pots look like these. When we get to the next peoples are in the Southeast Asia, 10th, 11th, 12th century, and we poor people in the West, in Europe and in the Americas, don't reach those temperatures until, say, 16th, 17th centuries. So we're something of laggards when it comes to these kinds of things. But it indicates the high degree of technological prowess, and had they not developed the skill to do that, the techniques to produce kilns of that type, they would not have been able to produce Celadon wares.
너무나 훌륭했던 우리 한국의 문화. 앞으로도 우리 한국이 우리의 문화를 잘 이어나가길 바랍니다. 오늘 준비한 영상은 여기까지입니다. 시청해 주셔서 정말 감사합니다.